Afternoon. Welcome to today's webinar, which is Productivity for Procrastinators. Now, I'm going to give a little bit of a confession to start off with. I am a procrastinator. Absolutely. I am totally with you on this. You know, I'm not an early morning riser. I'm a bit of a night owl. There's so many wonderful things I want to do, and I've got a thirst for learning, and I'm, shiny objects everywhere, distraction, which makes you feel constantly disorganized and feeling like you're behind the ball. And, you start to get a little bit down on yourself when you're a procrastinator. So I'm here to tell you this is all manageable, okay? If I can do it, you can do it. Really procrastination, we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about 3 types of procrastination you might be experiencing, see which one aligns best with you, and then I'm going to tell you some strategies that you can try to minimize them. Now, we're going to go through strategies quite quickly. This is only an hour. There's probably about 30 different ones I'm going to tell you about. That's right, about 30. So bear with me, but absolutely you'll be able to contact me afterwards if you want to have some more one-to-one time or if you have any questions about it. But I want to tell you that I'm not some super naturally organized, uber efficient, just gets up and gets to work without any barriers or challenges. I'm not that person. I'm absolutely a procrastinator. And what I'm going to show you is what I've learned through my studies in behavioral science and also my own experiences and things I've learned along the way in what I do. So we're really going to talk about what you can do to get over this in the immediate, but also to work on long term. Now, a little about me. My name is Rhonwyn, a learner. I like Rhonwyn, but without the B, too busy it buzzes away, and learner because I love to learn, I love to teach. I am a trainer by trade. And if you have questions following this session, please email me at rhonwyn@businessstation.com.au. I am delivering this talk today on behalf of Business Station for the Digital Solutions Program, which is an Australian government initiative to help small business, probably just like yourself, learn more about digital skills. So that might be digital marketing, but it can be simple things like how do I figure out what programs to use and when to use them and how they connect. And productivity is absolutely in there. So there's no sense and there's no rhyme or reason to setting up, 10 different amazing automation programs, which will help you if you're a procrastinator, I won't lie. But if you don't take the time to learn them, or if you don't follow through in the work that you get or the work that you need to do, no amount of digitization or digital transformation or, automation or whatever you want to say is going to save you from yourself ultimately. So there's lots of digital tools that will help you. But today we're really focusing on what you can do personally to do this. So I am a digital advisor as part of the program, and I'll tell you a little bit about the program. But I've been working with small businesses, in and around small businesses, for about 15 years or more. And I'm qualified in marketing and behavioral science, and I use them all the time. People always ask me, how do those two link up? Like, are you crazy? All the marketing textbooks are written by psychologists, because it's all about how do we get people to change behaviors and buy things and things like that. Now, modern marketing is a little bit different for that. We're not talking about marketing today, but behavioral science is absolutely all about, in the foundations of how do we solve procrastination. So I'm going to talk you through some practical tools, but I'm also going to tell you about a little bit about to give you a bit of insight for why you might be doing what you're doing. I also, to let you know, I do run my own businesses. So I'm absolutely same as you, run small businesses, building small businesses, try to, make myself a little empire just like you. And I also have a specialty in leadership development because I love seeing good workplaces flourish with great culture and things like that. So if you would like to have a one-to-one with me, it's only $44, and you can register at www.businessstation.link/Rhonwyn, which I'll tell you a little bit about now. So sorry, that's the link. If you're watching back the recording, you can pause it and write it down if you like. But this is 7 hours of personalized mentorship. Now, to be clear, 7 hours includes some of these workshops and webinars. So some of you watching this today might have been prescribed this webinar by an advisor in the Digital Solutions Program because you have had an advisory session where it was identified that potentially organizing yourself and procrastination was a challenge to you. So you're in today's webinar. Otherwise, we at Business Station, we fully believe in access for everybody. So even if you couldn't afford the $44, you can still access this webinar. But the difference of paying the $44 is you get three one-to-one sessions with someone like me or one of the other advisors, depending on what you want to talk about, what your challenges are in your small business. But it is absolutely pitched and it's there to help more with the digital skills. But we do talk about general advice around strategy, retaining customers, building a team, resilience, all this kind of stuff. Okay. Are you eligible? So be clear, this is a federal government program with public money. There is eligibility, so it is supposed to be for small business owners in Western Australia, Queensland, or the Northern Territory. You should be a small business, so fewer than 20 full-time staff, and you're there to make a profit. So if you're a not-for-profit, it doesn't mean you're totally ineligible, but you just need to have a conversation with us to see if you fit the not-for-profit eligibility criteria, which is a little bit extra. So again, businessstation.link.com/Rhonwyn. All right, let's just get into it. All right, no more stalling. So what is procrastination? Now, if you're sitting here because you feel like you are a procrastinator or you are doing the behavior of procrastination, which you can separate those two, you probably don't need me to explain what this is. This isn't a mystery to you. It's all about that feeling like I should be doing something else right now, but I'm not. Or where does the time go in the day? I've got 8 hours of usable time, for a work day, or 24 usable hours in a day, to quote Empire Records. But I'm not getting through it. Like, how am I not getting through my tasks when I know there's plenty of time to do it? So if you're asking yourself these questions, chances are you are displaying some hint of procrastination, which comes down to this. It's the action of delaying or postponing something. That's it. So instead of doing it now, you do later. The anecdote to counter procrastination is don't put off to tomorrow what you can do today. Now, I tell myself that all the time. In fact, I probably should. I'm putting my values for my business up on my wall, like make lemonade out of lemons, things like that. I probably should have that as one of my mottos, like don't put off until tomorrow what you can do today, to remind ourselves that time slips away really, really quickly. Now, to be very practical, and maybe I'll talk about this more in the practical component, but there's time management, which comes into this a little bit, but there's other things you need to take into account. So in terms of delaying or postponing something like a task or an action or something like that, you have to really ask yourself, is this involuntary, as in it's all those statements and questions I said before, like, hey, I've got heaps of time, why am I not getting this done? Or I've sat down to do this task 3 times and I just can't face it. That's involuntary. But there is also purposeful procrastination. So purposeful procrastination is the idea that, hey, you know what? I am going to delay this because when I look at it, it's not actually that critical right now. Now, some people just call it good time management, prioritization, urgent versus important, all that kind of stuff, which we will talk about a little bit later. But the reality is that, even just for work-life balance, you might choose to purposefully procrastinate on something because you need to maintain your health and well-being and balance in your life, which is perfectly acceptable. So there is involuntary and procrastination, and there's purposeful procrastination. One will help you, the other will sink you. And I want you to keep that in your mind because I understand the frog boiling water has been proven to be untrue, but the old analogy of putting a frog in water slowly comes to the boil, and so it doesn't jump out. Procrastination is a little bit like that analogy, where you are in the bubble of procrastination and you will plod along doing what you feel is the maximum potential and capacity you can do, like with your time. And what will happen is by the end of that, you'll turn around and the whole year will pass and you go, well, what did I do? And sometimes I have the same. Sometimes I keep putting things off that clearly, in some theories would tell me it's really not that critical. If I've had something on my to-do list for the entire year, that is not something I need to do. It obviously is not that important. And if it is important, that's something I need to look at. All right. So why do we procrastinate? The top question we need to ask ourselves. A lot of people I come across who want to tell me, hey, I think I need to work on my time management. I feel like, nobody wants to admit that they're a procrastinator. We kind of feel like it's a negative thing to say, I'm a procrastinator, because it is, in a lot of traditional workplaces, traditional methods of achievement, in the model of achievement, we're taught that achievers get stuff done. There's none of this thinking about it, extra planning, working it out, taking our time, maybe do that tomorrow so I can have a little rest today. There's none of that. There's none of that in a high achiever, agenda. But the reality is we do. It can be a personality trait. There are certain personality traits where procrastination is just part of that. Own it, no problem. There are other forces that cause us to procrastinate, and some of them are more concerning than others. So I'm going to go through a few different ones now and a few different motivations for procrastination. And I really want you to just be super, super, super honest with yourself if you click with something. If you do click with something, I want you to take a moment and reflect on it. So especially if you're watching back the recording, I would encourage you to pause on the recording and do a little journaling on it. And this word journaling just means get out a booklet or a piece of paper or something with a pen and paper and start writing out, if you're comfortable, start writing out, what are my thoughts on this? If this has triggered me to think, I might be doing this, why am I doing this? Try to do a little bit of, internal investigation into what might be triggering that, what might be causing that. We'll talk about that in a minute. All right, so why do we procrastinate? Not everyone is the same. Okay, so most people approach me saying, I need some time management help. And I say, whoa. Why do you think you need time management help? So if you didn't do this workshop, chances are you went to the time management workshop already and it didn't help. Okay, and I'm going to explain why. So depending on where we've been, we have different blocks to where we're going. So we have 3 types here. We have emotional. So emotional procrastination is where you're always submitting to the more pleasurable option. I see this a lot in people trying to do their marketing for their startups, where they've spent maybe 20 hours tweaking some Canva posts and some colors on their logo, creating a logo, trying to do 4 different logos, something in the creative realm, really. Or they've been watching YouTubes about how to do something, and then those YouTubes led to other YouTubes, which led to other YouTubes, and suddenly we know the whole history of the Mayan civilization, and we still didn't get our stuff done, right? Cat videos. That's why cat videos are so popular. It is for the procrastinators of the world. I'm absolutely sure of it. Okay, so submitting to pleasure, which is basically saying, that task is going to be like admin for me. Oh, that task is going to be so droll. I don't want to do it. So I'll just tweak my slide deck for 20 minutes, which turns into an hour. So again, you can also be avoiding discomfort. So this will be different things for different people. For me, I sometimes, even though I talk for a living, so this is totally backwards, even though I talk for a living and I train for a living, and some days I'm literally talking 8 hours straight, workshop after workshop after workshop, after client meeting, after student meeting, straight. And yet I get a bit of anxiety picking up the phone to call someone. Why? because I get anxious. I get this kind of emotional response to not being able to see that person. There's no body language. I think possibly I rely a lot on body language and nonverbal cues when I speak to people, which in a good way makes me really intuitive when I'm talking to someone and doing one-to-ones and stuff like that, or in a training room. Face-to-face is by preference, obviously. But when it comes to phone calls, I don't know if I'm interrupting them. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know if they're going to pick up. Are they crazy? Goes into crazy town, which I say very comfortably. It's a place I visit often, as we all do. The little crazy town where you get all internal in your thinking and you start looping and going a little bit nuts over some tasks. So you're avoiding discomfort. So something that, you're avoiding because you're either avoiding emotionally because there are more pleasurable things to do, and your little pleasure brain goes, I'd rather be doing that. I'd rather be looking at something colorful and pretty. Or avoiding discomfort where you're like, ooh, the last time we did that, ooh, So then we've got psychological. Psychological is more about the outcomes, and it can also be about our frame of mind. So psychological comes a lot into what the modern world likes to call mindset. So if your mindset is anti-money, if your mindset is anti-achievement, or your mindset tells you that you've never achieved anything before, why would it start now? Why would I bother? All this kind of stuff can plague in the back of our minds, even subconsciously, we don't even realize it. So psychological usually is we're avoiding outcomes. So it's more emotional. We will feel like a kind of a physical joy or discomfort that manifests from the emotions we're feeling, and usually we can identify those emotions. Psychological is probably more secretive. It's our brain trying to protect us from trouble ahead. But also it also changes our perspective on things. So we also can get into a reactive versus proactive mode, which basically means if I'm proactive, which is again in the high achievers agenda. If you're proactive, you're like, right, this is what I'm going to do today. I'm going to do this, 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 this. I know this is coming, so I'm going to get that done ahead of time. Right? When you're proactive, you're really choosing what work you're doing at every moment of the day, right? Reactive is, as you can imagine, is when you react to things. So when you have a reactive mindset, which sometimes can happen, it can actually get triggered by the type of work we do. So for example, if I am doing the sort of work where I'm on my computer all day, I can sometimes get into a bit of a reactive mindset where I've had so many interruptions to the work I'm doing, messages, emails, phone calls, social alerts, notifications. You feel what I'm saying, right? What happens is your brain flips and you go from being proactive and trying to do a task to being reactive and kind of going, right, what's next? It's been binging me all day. I'm just going to wait for the next thing. And you end up just flicking from program to program, looking for the next message, checking your phone, checking your alerts, right? So you go from doing purposeful work to being reactive to waiting for things to happen, right? So that's not a good place to be in, especially in terms of procrastination. It will absolutely mean solid procrastination if you can't focus on your tasks. Third one is practical. So practical is like, I don't have any of these problems, Rhonwyn. I just don't seem to get stuff done. Then you probably are a type of practical procrastination, where you are literally just not taking the time to manage what tasks need to be done and approach them in a practical way that gets them done in the best way possible. All right. So you can have all of these things. You could have none of these things and still feel like you're procrastinating. And what I mean by that is you could literally just be having an off time. Yeah. So you're like, no, I'm not. I don't do that. I don't do that. And I feel like I'm pretty organized. I'm still not getting stuff done. Well, you know what? Maybe you are just tired, and, if you are kind of really sluggish in your work, do a bit of a self-check and go, right, am I feeling tired or energetic? Tired, tick, okay. Have I been eating properly? Am I hydrating? When was the last time I took a break? When was the last time I took a day off, right? In the words of Dale Beaumont, who I adore, if you work every day, you are a workaholic. And I would agree with that theory. I would agree with that sentiment. And I'm a workaholic. Like, I have to really pry myself away from my work. And that's because I love my work. And sometimes I am a procrastinator. So I'm like, all right, I have to squeeze in every other moment I have. So I have these weeks where I get massive amounts of work done. And then I have these weeks where I'm like, it's a bit slow. Now there is some other physiological type of things that can come into play around your circadian daily rhythm and also your feminine rhythm, if you know what I mean, the 28-day cycle, which might sound a little bit weird, but to be honest, a lot of both men and women have a bit of a moon cycle. Sounds a bit woo-woo, but we have a cycle, and we will have days that we are top energy. The chemical balance in our body and our brain is really, really attuned, and we just like power through things. So there's lots of different ways you can approach this. These are the three I focus on, but yeah, there is also physiological as well, just so you know. All right, so let's look at emotional. So emotional. I'm going to go straight into emotional intelligence here. Now, emotional intelligence, is the theory that we don't just have academic intelligence, which is what we are, we're quite used to learning and going by about how you have grades in school and things like that, and also your reasoning and stuff. There's also emotional intelligence, and it's been well respected for decades that this is a real thing. And even now they're going into, there's music intelligence and mechanical intelligence and all these other types of intelligences, which I'm absolutely a big advocate for, and I believe in. I think every person has a special talent, and just because it's not the main thing that everybody else has a talent in doesn't make it not a talent. You know what I'm saying? So with emotional intelligence, we can use this to kind of get some self-awareness around procrastination. And what I mean by that is we can be aware of our emotional state at the time we are actually performing our work. So, like I said, I find some types of administration uncomfortable. Like, it's not to the point of discomfort, but it's not desirable, emotionally desirable for me. It's certainly a satisfaction once I've completed it. So there's, and it's something to be aware of, like every task you complete, you are likely going to get a bit of a buzz of satisfaction. So this is another thing we can bring into our approach to things in our mindset, to be like, well, I don't feel very good doing this task, but think about how good I'm going to feel once it's done. And that's how I approach my admin now. I say, well, I took some time to really reflect on, okay, what are the things that I'm really slow at, and why am I slow at them, and what's my emotional state when I'm doing them, when I'm approaching them. So with a procrastinator, it's not usually the action that we procrastinate on, it's the lead up to the action. So for a real solid procrastinator, you can have this like little panic monster that comes out. So you hear those people that go, I do my best work when it's done at the last minute. And that is because people who are genuine, full-on procrastinators, it doesn't matter how much we plan out our work. It doesn't matter how many times we sit down to do it. We get to the end. You've had 30 days. It's day 29. And suddenly the panic monster erupts in your brain, and everything switches on and everything starts firing. And you're like, right, I'm onto it. So, this can be triggered by the little emotional procrastination. It's like, I don't really know. I'll do that soon. It's fine. So self-awareness is key. How do we do self-awareness? That is probably a better question. It's really about prompting yourself to ask the question, what am I doing right now and why? Okay, that triggers us to see if we are having a block. And then if we are having a block, we ask the question, what am I feeling right now? Like, what is the emotion I'm feeling right now? Okay. Now, If it helps you, put something in front of your computer or next to your workstation or wherever it is that you are doing the tasks that you need to get done. Like, hey, are you doing it? Why not? What are you feeling right now? And you can jot it down. Keep diary, paper diary, your calendar, whatever. Probably somewhere private, obviously. This is still a little window into your emotions. But you know what I mean? Like it's something you can do. But once we start to be aware of our emotional state, the whole point is then we can start to choose some reactions to that emotional state. So if I'm feeling anxious and almost upset at the idea of approaching a task, there's different reasons for that, you know, fear of the unknown or whatever. Then I have to go, right, how can I overcome this reaction? How can I turn off this, what we call a trigger, that's triggering my emotion to turn off, and an emotion that is not helpful to me, an emotion that is kind of a block to me, right? So being aware of what am I doing now? Do I have a block? If I am, what is the emotional feeling? Am I feeling an emotion? If you're not feeling an emotion, chances are it could be more of a psychological or just a practical block. You know, just a natural distraction. But if we can understand to choose the value behind what the results will be over what our current emotional state will be, it's a bit like, it's a bit on, I mean, it depends on the severity of your emotions, but it, you know, I liken it to when you get a cut on your finger and you're like, well, that's really uncomfortable. And the place where it's at, maybe I'm just, you know, if I don't do anything, it won't hurt. But I probably want to make drinks and food for myself. I probably want to put my clothes on for the day. There's probably a whole bunch of things, driving my car, using my phone, it's probably a whole bunch of things that I need to use this finger for that I've cut. And you would push through the discomfort of that, having that paper cut, say, just something small, so that you can allow the other things to take place. So you have to kind of imagine this with some triggers where it's like, I just need to push through this a little bit so I can find out what happens if I can choose a different response and what response that might be to react. So if I find myself going, I don't want to do this. Okay, well, what's the worst thing that can happen? Why would I not want to do this? What is the good thing that could happen? Yeah, so just be a little bit self-realization. All right. When we think about triggers, there's lots of things that can trigger you. So these are a few. And again, this is obviously touching on emotion and psychology, everything. And I'm not a psychologist. I'm just giving examples here based on my experiences and my background. But this is in no way counseling. I want to be very, very clear about that. If going through this actually triggers you to have some quite severe emotions at this point, I encourage you to pause the recording or leave the webinar and go and seek someone you trust to go and talk about it, or you could call the Lifeline or something like that. If you are, I can't bring up that number right now. I haven't thought to bring up the number. Maybe I should next time. But if you just Google Lifeline on your phone, it'll come up. So if you are looking at this going, oh my goodness, I didn't expect we were going to talk about this today. Deep breath, take a pause if you need, okay? So I'm just going to go through some basic ones. There's a few quite severe ones here, but I'm just going to go through some basic ones. So some basic ones might be a lack of control, where you think, oh, I feel quite helpless doing this, or hopeless doing this, or I'm feeling overwhelmed. Overwhelm is a really common one. So that feeling of overwhelm is where there's so much happening, and perhaps even there's so many tasks that all look equally urgent and important and critical, and consequences are bad. And so you're starting to stress, and then that stress piles on, and then it just becomes a blur. Yeah. So, you know, if you're feeling like you can't approach tasks and you're procrastinating, could it be because you're just feeling overwhelmed? Maybe you got to step back, just If you have to, blindly pick one thing and just get started on that, and don't worry about everything else. Everything else will take its turn, yeah? When it comes to your time, you can only do one thing at a time. As much as you might want to think you can do a million things at a time, and trust me, I've tried, the reality is you can only set your mind, your hands, your body really to kind of focus on one task at a time. Yeah, sure, I can make a coffee and feed a kid and check my emails at the same time. It's not really the same thing as when you're trying to do a focused task. So focused tasks are actually things that matter. You're really only going to do them one time, one thing at a time. So if you're feeling overwhelmed by the sheer volume of everything you've got to do, just start with one. Now, any of these might trigger you to have some emotions. It's just up to you to do a little bit of personal investigating to find out what might trigger them. Once you know what triggers your emotions, especially we're just talking about procrastination here, like why are you not wanting to do this task? Why are you not wanting to forward this business you know will be good for you? Why are you not having that difficult conversation with a staff member? Why are you not doing that marketing campaign that you know is going to be amazing? Yeah. Have a look at, did you have a past experience where it didn't go well? Are you worried about spending the money? What is it that's the source of that trigger? If you want to check how emotionally intelligent you are, there is a basic test you can do. If you just go onto a search engine and search free test for emotional intelligence, you'll come up with a few different options. This is one I've got here. You can type that out, or you can click it on the video. I'm sorry, but if you just want to take a moment to pause and type that out, or just search it, you'll find one. And it's not necessary to understand your level of emotional intelligence and what you need to work on in terms of procrastination. But if you are finding or figuring out that maybe it is my reactivity and the way I manage my emotions could be a block, then yes, please go and do this and explore more about emotional intelligence. So how do you overcome emotional procrastination? That is the best question to ask, because knowing you have something and getting past a challenge is two different things. So if you are avoiding discomfort, there's a few things you can try. Now, this is just surface level. Again, if you are having severe, quite significant triggers, talking about all this stuff around emotions and your well-being and everything, just leave the webinar. Totally fine. But if this is just basic stuff where you're like, oh, I just don't want to do my paperwork, then these are the kinds of things you can try. So the first one is to force the fear first. What I mean by that is you identify the fear, you bring it to light, and you approach it as in kind of like battlegrounds. I'm just going to go for it. Yeah. So anything that you are a little bit fearful of, do it first, get it out of the way. Yep. Once you do this a few times, and if you, and I'll get to the 100 rule, but once you do this a few times, it starts to lose a bit of fear. Yeah. You start to understand, and your emotions start to understand, oh, nothing bad actually happened. This could be okay. It's not as uncomfortable now that I'm kind of used to it. Kind of like getting needles and all that kind of stuff, right? You do it a few times and you're like, oh, okay, this again. Next one is eat that frog. Now, if you're a Brian Tracy fan, you probably would have heard of this already. The theory of eat the frog is like, of all the tasks on your list, there's probably one fat, juicy, disgusting task that you just can't bear to do. And what happens is that until you do it, you're going to have this emotional reactivity to your task list every time you go to do your work, because that thing is still there. That big fat frog, ugly, call it a toad if you want. We're in Australia, it's a big fat toad sitting on your desk, on your task list, waiting for you to do it, and you keep putting it aside, and procrastinating. And worse still, it could be something that is either critical for your business or is blocking other things. So the eat that frog rule is basically whatever that frog is, you're going to do it first. Okay, it's a little bit like force the fear. Whatever that big, fat, juicy, horrible task is that you've been avoiding, that's the first thing you're going to do today, and you can do it straight up. You're not allowed to, don't get up and make tea or coffee. Don't check your phone. Don't answer your emails. Don't do anything else first. Nothing else before it. Yeah. Anything else, literally any other task you do before the big fat frog will be a distraction, which will lead to procrastination, which will lead to you losing a whole day of work, basically. Okay. So do it first, do it fast, get it done. Just slide that sucker down and get it done. Yeah. That's Eat That Frog. The 100 rule, I'm a bit of a fan of myself. Eat That Frog can be very challenging, I found, although it is a very good theory and it will work for you for some of you. The 100 rule is a little bit different. It's like, okay, say for example, my example, I didn't like making phone calls. I'm going to do that for an hour, 100 days in a row. 100 days in a row. Or I'm not very good at blog writing, so I'm avoiding it. So I'm going to do 100 blogs. This is the 100 rule, okay? The idea is that by the time you've done something 100 times, there is zero emotion left in that task. There's zero fear left in that task. There's zero blocks left and challenges left in that task, because you've gotten it to a state where it almost becomes, it becomes normalized, right? So that's the 100 rule. Just do it 100 times in a row. Don't even think about it. Just like, yep, I'm going to hate this at least the first 30 times. I'm going to do it anyway. Okay. That might be the case for things like making videos. I know a lot of people, I do a webinar that's like how to make videos with no filming, like not putting yourself on camera. That's very popular. And I'll say, probably because people get a little bit anxious at the idea of being on camera. What am I going to say? And how do I set that up? I'm not going to be good enough. I'm not going to be good enough. So doing 100 videos in a row, done. You'll never worry about videos ever again. And affirmations, of course. So reminding yourself, doesn't matter what it feels like, this will be worth it in the end. The end justifies the means. I've got this. I can do this. It's really not that bad. This task, or full-on affirmations, which is, I love this task. I love admin. I love calling people. I love it. I love it. I love it. That's an affirmation. It sounds strange to sit there and say, I love to do something when you don't like it. But, words are very powerful, and we can, if our subconscious is trying to trick us, why not do it in reverse and try and trick our subconscious? Now, on the other side, submitting to pleasure. So use pleasurable pursuits as a reward. So you would have learned this, probably been brought up as a kid, or with parenting happens a lot, where it's like, hey, if you want to get that dessert tonight, if you want to eat that candy, if you want to have that chocolate cake, you're going to eat your damn broccoli. Okay. Sorry, sit down. But you get the idea, right? So instead of, you can kind of use it as like, look, I know I want to check my social media right now. All right, no worries. If that's the pleasurable thing I want to do, I'm going to make a deal with myself. I'm going to do an hour on this task, and then I can spend 20 minutes looking at my social media posts. No problem. If I get this task done, then I can spend 20 minutes looking at funny cat videos, looking at cucumbers jumping around, whatever. Okay. Likewise, and this is talking about if you are someone who submits to pleasure. So if you seek out pleasurable tasks over other ones, more than just discomfort, but you're just like, oh, I just can't bother, I want to do this instead, and you don't even realize you're doing it sometimes, then yeah, identify what that pleasurable thing is and say, right, I'll do that after. Task lockdown. Task lockdown I'm actually a bit of a fan of for procrastinators. Task lockdown is where you say, I have to do a important proposal today, an important proposal, right? Critical. Got to get it done. If I don't do it, I don't get the work, right? Very important. But I'm a little bit like, oh, I'd rather be doing something else. And to be honest, some of these you can use in different things. So task lockdown you can use in a few of these other types of procrastination, which I guess is where I'm a fan. Task lockdown is where you say, right, for the next 90 minutes, I'm in task lockdown. So from 9 o'clock to 10:30, I'm not allowed to look at my social media. I'm not allowed to look at my internet. I'm not allowed to check my emails. I'm not allowed to get up and get a cup of tea. I'm not allowed to go to the bathroom. So I'm not going to drink a gallon of water. I'm not allowed to fix the bed my cat is sitting on. I'm not allowed to turn on aircon. I'm not allowed to anything. I'm literally not allowed to do anything for the next 30, 60, 90 minutes, whatever your lockdown time is. Minutes. Now, grant you, if you're like me, you see me drinking coffee, I've also got a water next to me. You have to get that stuff first before you do task lockdown, right? Get yourself a water. Put yourself some nice music in the background if that's what you know you're going to need. Turn off your phone if you need. Check your emails first if you need, whatever. Get a pot of tea. Do whatever you need to do. The sort of things that would pull you away from your desk or your task, whatever those things are, set them up beforehand. Yeah, a little bit like doing everything on your mobile phone before you're driving, right? Same concept. Get it done, put it away. Nothing else matters but the driving. Nothing else matters but the task lockdown. Time tracker on non-essential. So if you are someone who submits to pleasure a lot, chances are you're getting a little wayward from your tasks all the time and you don't even know you're doing it. So it depends on what phone you're on, but if you go onto your Google Play or iStore or whatever, and you look up time tracker, chances are you can download it to your phone, to your laptop, and it'll basically let you know what you're doing. If you're on Microsoft, it has a productivity tool built in that will track your productivity. So it'll say, hey, you did this many calls and meetings and this many, worked on documents for this long and was online this long and things like that. So a time tracker basically just says what you did during that time. I use a paper one, which is why I'm like, oh, go search an app. Next time I'll search for some alternatives for you. But I do use paper, and the reason for that is it makes me think about what I'm doing as I'm doing it, right? So if I actively have to record what I'm doing at my time, it means that at little increments, like every 10, 15 minutes, I have to stop and go, right, what am I doing right now? So I'm actually a bigger fan of the paper time tracker where it's not automated for you. You actually have to confess and be mindful and be self-aware of what you're doing. So I would do that. If you can do it for a week, great. If you can't do it for a week, at least do it for a couple of days. And it's as simple as getting a piece of paper, getting a pen. If you want to type it out first and print it, fine. But you're basically just going to put every hour and then 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. Every hour, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. And as much as possible. Like if you skip a 10 minutes, that's fine. Hopefully that means you're working on a good task and you just go back and go, put a line, task, the whole 30 minutes task. What this tells you is, as you can imagine, it tells you how much you went off track. So you can kind of see what times of day you're going off track, what sort of tasks you're doing to go off track, and you can start to put some practical things in place to avoid that. Create an alternative, creative, emotional outlet. Very, very important. Quite often I know for me, and I think this is probably typical of a lot of people, we seek submitting to pleasure because we just don't have enough of it in our lives. There's so much pressure on us to be go, go, go all the time. Like I know for me, from the moment I wake up to the moment I go to bed, I'm doing something for someone somewhere, right? I'm either doing something for family, doing something for work, doing something for business, doing something for a favor for someone, doing something for my house, my garden. I don't really have like purposeful free time where I'm like, switch off everything. Yeah. And I can feel it. Like when I go for long periods like that, where I'm not actually doing anything that's purposefully pleasurable, like painting or something like that, your mind and your emotions start to kind of force it on you. So it seeks pleasurable pursuits because you just don't have the balance, right? So find yourself a hobby. It's basically what I'm saying. Find yourself a hobby to have an outlet for all the creativity and stuff you want to do, all the pleasurable stuff you want to do, and schedule it in. And then when you are going to a task, you can just relax and do the task. All right, psychological. Psychological is really about what's happening up here that you don't even know about, okay? So what is holding you back? A lot of people think fear of failure, but actually fear of success is equally prominent. So fear of failure is where you are putting all your heart and soul into something like a business, and you're so worried about totally bombing out that you don't start, or you don't progress, or you don't follow through. I know I've had this at points where someone has asked me a couple of different ways. Like, someone's asked me for a favor, and it meant I had to contact someone I know I hadn't spoken to in a little while. But I know that if I had done it, it would have led to other work, and then I was worried if I'd be able to fulfill the work because I was so busy. So I would just kind of avoid responding to it. I'd say, oh yeah, I'll get to that. And I'd avoid responding to it because I was so worried that I would take on the work and then totally let them down, that instead I just let them down. So I haven't done that for a long time. It was really when I first started up, and I had a young family, and I'd have this constant family interruption, and I was just like, oh man, I can't even keep a schedule. Like, it's so hard. You know, kids are so unpredictable. I can't even make all my appointments because, you know, some kid will get sick or something. Not some kid, my kid would get sick. That I just felt like, man, I feel like I'm going to bomb out all over the place. So I started being reluctant to take work, right? So it's kind of fear of failure. Fear of success is kind of a similar block and a similar emotion, but you're actually scared of, well, what if it works out? And a lot of fear of success, I think, is framed around our psychological mindset around money, I find. So people who have come from very modest upbringings, you're used to kind of struggling with money and things like that. It's kind of part of your way of life. And the thought of having $1 million in your bank account, you can't even fathom that. Like, you like, what would that look like? You know, what would it look like to open up my bank account and have, or several bank accounts to be spread around, and have like $1 million across that? Like, I don't even know what that would look like. Or, you know, likewise, like, if you don't have the same support. So if you have some unsupportive relationships where you might have someone close to you that's like, that'll never work, or, you know, rich people are stupid or whatever, something like that. Also, you can be worried about what happens to your relationship dynamics if you actually made it big time. Yeah. So fear of success, fear of failure, very, very similar outcomes, which is that you kind of stop the start. So you don't progress because you're worried about the outcome. Fear of public scrutiny, very similar. So it might be that you feel like your normal self, your natural self, your idiosyncratic self is not really up to having a public presence. So you don't put yourself out there, you don't have much visibility, because you're worried that you're going to stuff it up. You know, people are going to think you're an idiot. People are going to think you're stupid. People are going to think your product's no good. It's all that kind of stuff, right? So public scrutiny. You know, what if I put it out there and people think it's terrible? Then again, we talked about unsupportive relationships and unsure of the unknowns. So unsure of the unknowns can hold people back because you're just like, I don't know what's going to happen. My little bubble here, my little comfort zone is quite content. So yeah, I'm planning to do that. You'll be fine. You can see where the procrastination sits in. Yeah. I'll get to it when I can, when I'm absolutely sure about what's going to happen, basically. But you'll never be sure about what's going to happen because you're not an oracle or a psychic, most likely. So it's kind of a forever block, like, until you kind of get to know. Now, you can overcome that with a bit of research and mentoring, you know, getting yourself a mentor who's been in the fray and can take you through it. I can help. The other side of psychological is time control. So a little bit like the reactivity reactive versus proactive, right? Do you wait for things to happen? Now, as an employee, there's a lot of employee mindset where you wait for things to happen. And that's because work is given to you. You have, and likewise, you have a structure to work within. So 9 a.m. or 8:30, you come in, make yourself a cup of tea or coffee, drink, whatever, hot chocolate, water, sit at your desk, you check your emails, you have a list of tasks to do that have been provided for you that work towards a team goal, which then work towards an organizational goal, and all that stuff has been worked out already. You don't have to figure out what the goal is for the year. You don't have to figure out the business plan and the marketing plan and the operational plan and all that. You don't have to figure out how to break that down into daily chunks of tasks for the whole year. You don't have to do any of that because you collectively do it in an employee structure generally. So when you flip and you go into self-employment or running a business, what can happen is that your brain doesn't flip with you. And what I mean by that is you can still have that employee mindset where you're kind of waiting for things to happen. You're waiting for customers to turn up. You're waiting for tasks to be assigned to you or delegated to you. And you're waiting for instruction, basically. And this can be a real procrastination because you're just not really sure how to move forward. And psychologically, you are a little bit worried about the choices you make with your time and the choices you make in your business and the choices you make and the decisions you make around your task management, that you just kind of put everything off or you don't prioritize things properly. The other thing about time control is, like, what other stuff are you saying yes to? So I had this conversation with another manager. Another manager I think is an uber professional, good task orientation, good people orientation, gets the job done, very good manager. And she and I have a very similar problem, saying yes to everything. Can you do this? Yes, I can. Of course I can do that. No problem. And I think that comes from having that disposition of testing yourself constantly and being open to trying new things. You find out that you can do a lot of things and you're capable of doing a lot of things, which you would think is a great thing to have. But actually what happens is you just end up saying yes to everything because you feel like, yeah, I could do that. So you have to kind of say, well, what is the difference between I can do that and should I do that? And you've got to bring that kind of decisiveness into your time control of, yes, I can do that task, but maybe I should not do that task. Maybe I should say no. Maybe I should reject those requests. You know what I mean? So figure out what motivates your choices in how you approach your time and your mindset. So how do you overcome psychological procrastination? Good question. I'm glad you asked that. So if you're avoiding outcomes, so if I go back up, this is avoiding outcomes, what's holding you back? Confidence doesn't come with thought. Confidence comes with action. So if you are having a little fear of the outcomes, a fear of public scrutiny, a fear of failure, the only real practical solution to that is actually just to go and do something. So with startups, the simplest way to do this, and even if you're not a startup, even if you just, you've got a new product or service or you're trying to get back into it or whatever, go and do some stuff. So if, for example, you were doing, as a very basic thing, maybe you're doing coaching, life coaching, whatever. You might say, hey, first 5 clients are 100% free, okay? And you do this just to get some action going. There's no, how do you say it? You don't have that guilt of someone has paid me good money for this. What if it flops? They're going to totally judge me. They're going to give me a bad review. You say, hey, look, I'm testing a new process, or I'm looking to get some momentum going, or hey, it's an introductory special. Just want to, give it away for free, whatever. Okay, 5-10 people. Let's get some sessions going. All right. And what that'll give you is some feedback where people go, oh, wow, that was amazing. Yeah. You go, oh, great. Yeah. Then confidence starts to build. And then you don't feel so fearful of trying it anymore. Another thing about avoiding outcomes is to break free of this perfectionism kind of thing that can happen. Yeah. So not everyone will buy your product, and that's okay. Not everyone will use your service. That's okay. Not everyone who uses your product or service will like it, and that's okay. Not everyone will be 100% satisfied in the way you do stuff. That is okay. If you do something 100 times, chances are, statistically, at least one time, maybe 10 times, you're going to stuff it up. That's okay. You get what I'm saying? It's okay. I think if you are so worried about the outcomes and trying to control the outcomes, you're going to put a block in front of yourself. So if you feel that you are blocking yourself a little bit in that way, and you're worried about, if you feel that kind of sense of, oh, I think I'm worried about what's going to happen. I think I'm worried about what if it goes wrong. Yeah. So if you find yourself thinking, what if, ding, 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 we have a winner. Okay. You probably have that psychological procrastination, which goes with, I'm not sure what's going to happen, so I do nothing, stay in my comfort zone. Okay. So tell yourself, I'm totally fine to fail. I'll give you an example. The first car I ever bought, bless him, this guy I knew in high school who I adore, Jay, he was a good mate of mine, and he was an aircraft mechanic, and he helped me buy my first car, which, granted, the parameter was, can you help me go look for my first car? So someone to, when you're 20 years old, 17 years old, whatever, can you come with me and just check out cars that I want to look at? And he calls me up about a week later and goes, I've got you a car. I'm like, what are you talking about? What do you mean you got me a car? Anyway, long story short, it was a bit of a fixer-upper. I get the car. And I thought, yes, this is perfect. It's a very imperfect car. I'm a first-time driver. I know the stats. I absolutely expect to crash my car at some point. I never did. But took having kids in the car for me to bump into someone. But but what it did was it alleviated that constant tension I would have had driving the car had it been a perfect car with perfect expectations and worried about whether I'm going to do something to it all the time. I could just get in, drive it. I'm just going to go for it. No problem, right? There's also, so telling yourself failure is perfectly okay will remind you, just do it anyway. Result of inaction. This is a little bit of an analytical style. So if you're a very analytical mindset, you'll like this one. You can literally write down paper and map out and analyze and put a value on it, the whole shebang. What happens if I don't do this? Yep. And this is very easy to do if you're running a business, because it's very measurable, right? So if everything goes well, maybe you've got an extra $100,000 a year in the bank, minus expenses and costs, right? That's if you do it. If you don't take action, well, what happens? Do you keep going the way you're going? Clearly if you're about to start a business or you've started a business, there's usually a very big why that you've started it. Yeah. So it could be some very big ones, like I want some financial freedom. I want financial security for my family. I want to teach my family and my kids really good independent skills. I absolutely hate the career and the job that I'm in, and I'm going to go insane. I can feel for my mental health that I need more balance in my life, and doing my own thing is the best way that I can do that, right? There's lots of really big reasons why you decided to do something. So if you do nothing, you started your business, great, and then nothing progresses, which means you're not moving forward, which means you're not actually doing this new thing. You're not actually running your business unless you're making a little bit of money. If there's no money coming in, yep. So we've got to do something, right? So the result of inaction, if nothing else, means nothing will change. So if nothing ever changes, what does that look for you in 12 months, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? What does that mean for you? Yeah. So if you are a little bit worried about that, and you look at that and go, right, I'm clearly putting it off and I should be doing it. Try a bunch of these tasks, but I will say this, especially for psychological is definitely the place to get yourself a coach or a mentor, right? If you're having blocks, I think that humans learn best by a little bit of monkey see, monkey do, right? We see other people, like case studies or mentors, like, how did you do that? Show me how you did that, and then help me to do it. Yeah, it breaks through all this stuff because your brain can click over into the idea of, oh, this is actually possible. This person started from the same starting point as me and they've made it. So logically, I could do that. Yeah. So in psychological procrastination, absolutely the space to get yourself a coach or a mentor. And of course, build knowledge. So building knowledge in terms of outcomes is doing a bit more research. So finding case studies, finding stories, finding success stories, learning more about the mechanics of business, learning more about how to do marketing, how to do strategy, how to do planning, right? The more you build your knowledge, the more you can guide a more predictable outcome for what you do because you're doing it with better skill. Reactive versus proactive. Yes. So going back to how you control your time, turn off all your notifications and alerts. I tell you what, in this, digital solutions, we use Teams sometimes, and it's like bing, 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 so many people on there. And all of us, we're professionals, we run businesses. We're like, I'm switching it off because you go through these periods of a day where you can be in there, if everybody's in there asking a question and asking this and commenting on that, and making a joke, and, like you do in a team, like you might do in an office, an open plan office where you can hear every conversation and you can participate in every conversation if you want. You start to get this reactive mindset, okay? Just waiting for the next conversation, waiting for the next email. So turn off notifications, turn off alerts, put your phone on airplane mode if you need, so it doesn't get all that stuff through. The next thing is set tasks like a boss. I love this one. So at the end of the day, you look at what did I do today? And you absolutely set your tasks for the following day, okay? Always allow a bit of buffer of time when you set your tasks. So you will feel the pain of not progressing how much you think you should if you overburden your task list for the day, right? So if you set 3 major tasks for the day, there's a good chance you might get that done, right? So set up that email sequence, set up your week's posts in your scheduler, in your social media scheduler, and call that client so you can get a proposal through, right? 3 major things. If you just say, look, if I get those 3 things done, I'd be super happy. They're all critical, they're all purposeful, they'll all result in something, right? You set tasks like a boss. So you literally set up your tasks. Now you can, if you want to go a step further to writing down your tasks, you can literally make yourself a video. So any kind of screen capture video like InVideo or Movavi or Camtasia, something like that. Even on your phone, you can always record a video on your smartphone if you have a smartphone. Get out your phone, go, Rhonwyn, today, as in the next day, today, your most 3 important tasks are this, this, and this. The reason why these are most important is because of this. These are the guidelines and parameters I'd like you to follow to do these tasks. You record this on your phone. And if you don't get it done, this is what's going to happen, right? So it's kind of like the who, what, when, where, why of the 3 major tasks. You've chosen it for the day. And so when you go to sit down the next day, right, I've got a message from my boss. She's a bit easy on me, but I've got a message from my boss. And you read the video, you watch the video, sorry, and it says, Rhonwyn, blah, 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 do it today. Okay, right, okay. I've been told I will do this today. And you get to work as if the boss told you and you are the employee, because sometimes it's really hard to switch. If you want to write it down and put it in your calendar, go for it. I will say this, there's a bit of a psychological transition in watching the video back and reminding yourself face to face that you're doing it. I have tried putting it just in my calendar before, and what'll happen is the calendar says, hey, you're supposed to be working on your social media campaign right now. And I'm like, I'm busy, get away from me. So try different ways, but inevitably go on with what was successful. So it's either a written task list, here's the major tasks. It could be in your calendar to say, this is the time block you're doing, which is, we're going to get into practical, or set yourself a video to watch every day. Now you can delete it every day. Don't jam up your phone with weird messages. It won't make you feel good. And the reactive versus proactive, what am I doing right now? So going back to that time tracker, where you go, right, every 10 minutes, or when you remember, right, what was I doing the last 10, 20, 30 minutes? Write that down. Great. Was that useful time? There may have been a cat video in the middle there. Anyway, and then practical. So let's move on to practical. Thanks for staying with me. Practical is all the time management stuff you've probably heard of. So how do you manage your actual time? Now, Dale Carnegie and their group, they would say time is spelled L-I-F-E, and I have to admit, I would agree. Your time is literally your life, right? We measure life by the time we spend on this planet. If you are wasting it, guess what else you're wasting, right? So think about it in the most critical resource you have, because it is. So what tools and processes do you use to help you complete work to a timeline? Now, I'll tell you a very scary task I did one time. I was trying to build my business on the side of my full-time job, which I do quite often. I quite often get jobs because I like real estate and things. It's just easier. And I love it. I love working in teams. I love being, I do love being an employee, although I also love being my own boss more. So I was trying to work out my schedule for the year. It's a couple of years ago. I'm just going to take a sip. And I looked at everything I had to do, and I was like, right, take out weekends. I don't use those. All right, take out 38 hours in the week. That's for that. So I could probably get an hour of lunch to get stuff done. I could maybe get an hour at the end of the day to get stuff done. And then I probably have a half day here and a half day there and a half day there, right? Or an evening, whatever. So I'm like, okay, so that makes me about, say, 15, 16 hours, 20 if I really push it. I want to burn out by the end of the year on top of my full-time job. So what could I actually achieve in 15 hours a week? Good question. Now, if your business is already set up, automated, going swimmingly, right? You've done all that pre-work, 15 hours a week to run a business is very, very achievable. Absolutely. And some businesses you require a lot less. So I looked at this 15 hours and went, right, this is all the massive, inspirational, ambitious stuff I want to get done this year. And then I was like, right, I'm going to calculate it out. So there's a workshop I used to do called Dream It, Plan It, Do It. All right. And it's based off this activity, which is essentially you set out your goals for the year of your absolute non-negotiable. This is what I want to do this year. This is my main project or goal for this year. And then you break it down into quarters, so 90-day cycles. And each 90-day, then you give yourself a target, like an overall theme for the quarter. So, for example, if I was doing, workshops, so I'd be like, right, this quarter, we're going to focus on getting this workshop up and running and promoting it and selling it and doing it and feedback and blah, 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 blah. And then the next quarter and the next quarter. So, but when I broke it, I'm laughing because it's just so silly. Rookie errors you do, even though you know better. So I broke it down. And by the time I worked out all the mountains of work that I would have to do for this super ambitious schedule I'd set for myself, I think it worked out that I would need about 50 hours a week, realistically, to get it done. Now, that was before I was as digital as I am now. So I will say this, if you're watching this, get yourself into the Digital Solutions program or any program that teaches you digital skills and learn these programs. Because I was like, I was building the website, using WordPress, which is still a great platform, but it's very, takes some maintenance and some skill. And, and I was kind of, I had to do all these things from scratch, and this is about 5-7 years ago, or no, say 7 years ago. And, so I'm, so it wasn't a couple of years ago, it was quite a while ago, actually. So I'm doing all this stuff. And so when I looked at my time, I was like, man, it's not that I'm procrastinating. It's that I'm actually just not being practical with my bloody time. I only have 16 hours a week, and I'm setting myself enough work for like 40, 50 hours a week, essentially a full-time business on top of a full-time workload. It just wasn't going to be possible. And if it was possible with just me, grant you, just me, as a lot of people do when they're just starting out, you don't have a team of people. You don't have the budget for a team of people if you're a micro business starting or a sole trader, a solo. So I was like, okay, well then something's got to give here. So I stayed at that job, and then about 6 months in, I'd planned to step down. So I rejigged things so that the first 6 months of that year, I was building up just something very simple. And then for the second 6 months of that year, I'd cut my other work down to part-time, and I took this on, more full on. So thinking about digitization or digital transformation, it's really important to come to the party on your own business and realize that every program that you learn and put in place that can do some sort of automation is like having another staff member help you. So maybe you can't afford $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 a month for someone to work with you in your business to make bookings for you, or capture phone calls, or follow up on clients, or teach people stuff, or whatever it might be, social media marketing, right? Maybe you can't afford to have someone there, but I bet you can afford like $29 a month for some of these programs, or $75 a month for some of these programs, right? Some of them are exceptional, and they really do act like another staff member. So if you are having practical problems managing your time because there's simply just too much to do, I'm going to take you through a few things right now. So to overcome practical procrastination, there's a few things you can do. So first of all is understanding the priorities versus the values. So if you are a person who, you value family time, and the reason you value family time is because if your family walked in the door right now while you're working, would you step up from your work and go and do something, pay some attention to your family? Okay. Or would you sit at your computer and go, go away, right? That kind of behavior tells you exactly what you value more. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? If you value your work because it gives you a sense of drive and purpose, and, it makes you feel mentally, emotionally, physically well to focus on some work and achieve stuff, that's fine. That's a value for you. It doesn't mean your family is not a value to you. It's just a matter of where that priority list is for values, okay? So figure out what your top values are. Now, how do you do that? Generally speaking, have a look at how you spend your time, right? So if you value family, you probably spend a lot of time with family and you like it. If you value work, you probably are happy to spend extra time at work and you like it. If you value physical health, there's probably nothing more you enjoy than taking an hour out, going to the gym or going to the park or going for a walk or playing basketball or hockey or whatever it is you do. And that's a value to you. Likewise, you might value perfectionism and high quality work and details, in which case, that value, because that's important to you, you have to allow extra time to get certain tasks done, right? You see where I'm going with this? So once you figure out what your values are, you can figure out how to prioritize them in order to think about what is the most important thing to actually make progress in your business, right? If you value family over work, but you're trying to start a business, then you have to kind of compartmentalize when you do your work and be able to say, hey, family, please understand that I'm not available during this time. Yep, they will survive. If it's not, if you're a sole parent and you're like, no, Rhonwyn, it doesn't work like that, that's fine. Then you got to figure out how your timetable will work around that, because there's always a solution, right? One thing I've learned in life, there's a solution for everything, okay? It just may not be the obvious one. You just got to dig a little deeper and figure out, okay, how can I make this work, right? So come up with, say, what is my biggest challenge here, right? What are 3 ways that I could get around that? All right, which one is going to work best for me? Go do it, okay? Priorities versus values, doing first things first. So doing first things first comes from the 7 Habits of Success by Stephen Covey. And I'm a big advocate for this, and something that took me a long time to kind of figure out really, truly. Like, I knew that. You should do the most important things first. Sounds obvious. But what happens is when we get down to the next one, we're figuring out what's urgent versus what's important. In a lot of time management theory, they teach you, do what's urgent first. Like, no. Trust me. Don't focus on the most urgent thing first. And I'll tell you why. Yeah. Apart from the things about eat that frog and that sort of stuff, putting that aside, if I'm just doing my task list and I've got 3 major things to do or 5 major things to do, and one of them is super urgent, well, how much time is it going to take to do that task? And do I have a little wiggle room? Okay. So if it's not so critical that my whole business is going to crash down. So for instance, if I was doing a tender submission and it's due in 2 weeks, and I know it's going to take me like 3 weeks to do, well, that's bloody important and bloody urgent. I better get onto it. But if it's a normal day-to-day thing, doing day-to-day tasks in your daily operations, if you always do the urgent things first and then move on, what can happen is, depending on what those urgent tasks are, you might treat it a little bit like a lady's handbag, where it just fills up your day. No matter how much time you have in the day, you just fill it. If you do the most important thing first, that potentially is not urgent, it probably means it's something that is contributing to the long-term success of your business. Okay? I'm going to say that again, because it's really, really critical for you to understand this. Not all important things are urgent, but if they're not urgent, it probably means it's leading to the long-term success of your strategic progress. Okay? What do I mean by that? I'll give you an example. I'm making online courses, right? Because it's a natural progression from doing live courses and trying to figure out the best way to do that so it's nice and interactive and all the rest. If I don't set time aside every day to work on that in some regard, or I don't block out a day to do it, it will absolutely get carried away from other things, right? It'll just end up always going to the back, because I'm a procrastinator. And I know that, I plan to launch this in January, so I've still got like 3 months. I can do this tomorrow. Wrong. Absolutely. Get onto it today. 3 months will go like that. So it's a practice thing. Yeah, it's a habit. You have to do, if you know that thing is going to lead to your eventual success and progress in your business, whatever it might be. Could be doing an MBA. I don't know. Could be anything. Could be getting a certification for something. Could it be getting an ISO so that you've got quality assurance and you can go get that massive government tender or whatever it might be, right? If it's that important, make it important. Do it first. And do it before you jump into the urgent things, which can chew up all your time. Yeah. Triage system is very good. Triage, just like it implies, is kind of goes the green, amber, red. So if you have a bottleneck of urgent and important things, which can happen from time to time, where you haven't, especially if you're a procrastinator, things kind of, they start to all come together at the same time, right? Especially around this time of year when you know that people are they're going off work for 2-3 weeks. They're clocking out a week or two before that. They're lazing in a week or two after that. So you kind of lose a month over December, January. And you think you've got plenty of time, but you don't. So, you get to this pointy end where you're like, oh my goodness, I have to do all these things and they're all urgent and they're all important and they're all, if I don't get them done, something's going to bust. Reality is you don't have that much time. So if you don't, and we'll go to the ABCDE method next, but if you don't have the time to do this, then that's it. You don't have time to do it. So urgent versus important, a triage system is like red light is absolute first up, top of the list. If this doesn't work, the whole thing's going to go down. Okay, red light. Amber light is after that. It's a category after that, which is like, look, I'm not going to die. No one's going to die, but seriously, it's going to be a problem if I don't get this done. And then green light is not implying it's not important, but it's just a triage system where it's like, you know what, green, you simply come after orange and red. That's it. ABCDE method is where you categorize action first. B is like do it next. Oh, I'm forgetting this now. A is, what is it? I think it's another Brian Tracy one actually. So A is like super important. Class A, do it first, get it done. You're the only person who can do it. I probably should do this the AAA method actually now. So a simpler way to put this, ABCD method basically means A is first, B is second, C is like, you know what, it's not very critical. D, you're going to give it to someone else. E, it's been on the list long enough. It doesn't even matter. Just get rid of it. Okay. It's kind of that kind of system. Sorry, I'm paraphrasing there. I'll have to refresh on that. There's another newer method I liked that I heard someone talk about the other day, which was action, automate, or acts. I think I got that right. So action is like do it now. Automate is get someone else or something else to do it. And acts is this doesn't even need to be done. Just get rid of it. Right? That's kind of a simpler method. So action, automate, or acts. Overestimate your time. Yeah, absolutely. If you're doing a new task, double the time frame you think it's going to take. If you think it's going to take you, I can whip up a website in a day, it'll be fine. Yeah, well, Murphy's Law and time tells you, experience will tell you, if you think it's going to be one day, it's going to be 2 or 3 at least, right? So pick your task that you want to do and absolutely use this kind of priorities thing to say, hey, maybe I don't even need to do this. Maybe I should be asking someone else to do it. There's also things like around opportunity costs of the value of your time and that you can look at. We're going to leave that for today. If you don't have much of a direction, then you are absolutely not going to be able to do anything on the left side. So if you are not sure about where your business is going, like how quickly, what strategies, why you're doing it, what are your goals, what are your short-term goals, you don't have an action list, you don't know the parameters of resource things, you don't know any of that stuff, you don't have a direction. If you don't have a direction, you cannot set tasks, okay? So if you are just a little bit fuzzy on where you're going, what you're doing, then I suggest you come and enroll in one of the business planning classes and come and do that. I don't mean that in a cheeky way. Absolutely, 100%, just do it. Do some business planning and work out, okay, what am I actually going to do? So a bit like I gave the Dream It, Plan It, Do It example where you map out the whole year, break it down into 90 days, break it down into month and week and day. What are you doing? You will see whether that is achievable or not. So if you say, hey, I'm going to start a business this year and I'm going to put up an online program by, as soon as I can, that's very fuzzy. Okay. So if you're going to set yourself a goal, make it smart, make it really specific what you're going to do. Give yourself a timeline, make it a measurable result. Like, okay, I'm going to put an online course up by June and I'm going to have 10 enrollments. And it's going to be this big, and that's absolutely achievable to create in the time that I've got to do it, right? Yeah, make sure it's measurable. All right, so that's the end of today, and probably over time. I generally go over time. I'm a bit notorious for that. Sorry about that. So what did you learn today? Right, we went through the difference between involuntary procrastination and purposeful procrastination, and then we went more into the 3 different types of involuntary, noting that there is also physiological, but we'll leave that for today. So emotional is absolutely about being self-aware, pausing and reflecting on what am I feeling right now and why am I feeling it right now when I'm approaching a task, and then how can I overcome this? Like, what can I do to reduce that trigger and choose how I react to things? Psychological is about all the blocks that may be invisible, but they're there, around avoiding things, fear of failure, fear of success, worried about what people are going to think of you, worried about the outcome, and really putting some clarity in place around affirmations and mapping it out and getting yourself a mentor and coach to get through that. And practical, which is all your really traditional time management stuff that they throw in for us poor procrastinators and expect us to just do it and it'll be fine. Like, just get up early and get it done. No problem. But the reality is, possibly you just need to have a bit more focus on what exactly it is you're trying to do here, how you're going to do it, when you're doing it, and map it out in a very practical sense, okay? So I hope you liked today's webinar. Hope you found it informative. Again, this is from the Digital Solutions Program from Business Station, as funded by the Australian Government. And so for that sweet little fee of $44, you get to have 3 one-hour face-to-face sessions with someone like me. Or if you don't like me, it could be another digital advisor that focuses on Instagram or websites or cybersecurity or whatever it is that you would like to really go through with your business. And the only eligibility is that for us, you need to be in Western Australia or Queensland or the Northern Territory. If you're outside of those zones, the program still runs. We just don't do it. Okay, it's another organisation and we can put you in touch. Just let us know. Be for profit, like a normal for profit business, you've got to have an ABN in those states and fewer than 20 full-time employees. So visit businessstation.link/Rhonwyn. That's me. And you can have your first session with me straight after Christmas, whenever you see this, okay? This program runs till, as far as I'm aware at this point, till the sort of mid-September 2022. So if you're watching back the recording of this, there may still be time, jump on board. All right, have a great day, guys. And if you're watching this at this point, have a wonderful Christmas and enjoy your new year, right? And hopefully I'll see you on the other side. Have a great day, guys.